You're listening to Fashion Unzipped. I'm your host, Charlie Gowans-Eglinton, Senior Fashion Editor at The Telegraph. Joining me in the studio today are my fellow Senior Fashion Editors, Emily Cronin.
Hi.
And Caroline Leaper.
Hello.
It's week 3 on our bumper month of Fashion Week coverage. We started off in New York, where we saw Princess Diana references, a lot of them, on the catwalks, and also Katie Holmes invented the bradigan, a cashmere bra worn onto your matching cashmere cardi. Then to London, where we had nods to Little Women on the Amelia Wickstead catwalk. And every fashion editor worth their salt was wearing a pair of Kurt Geiger tweed sandals on the front row. Comfy. Now it's stop 3, the carbiest of all of the Fashion Week stops, Milan.
So many carbs.
So many carbs. But before we talk about the food, which I imagine we will, because who are we kidding? Caroline, this was your very first Milan Fashion Week. Did it meet up to expectations?
It certainly was, and it certainly did. And on that carb note, my goodness, there hasn't been a day that I didn't eat both pasta and pizza in the same day. I tended to do a bit of a pizza slice at least for lunch, followed by a full pasta dish in the evening, which seemed to be a balance that worked quite well for me.
Just the one pasta dish, or did you do like a preemie?
Well, it tended to be kind of a cheese course followed with bread, followed by a pasta dish.
Good.
That's called a balanced meal in Italy.
I think so.
Any tiramisu?
I never usually made it to tiramisu. A bit of limoncello.
Fell asleep in a carb coma before.
A bit of limoncello when it wasn't too much of a serious meeting.
Okay, so with your fresh eyes, Caroline, sum up for our dear listeners who perhaps have not been to Milan Fashion Week what your impressions were.
My impressions were everybody was a bit more glam. Everybody got a little bit more dressed up than maybe they did in London, where we kind of go to shows often in our jeans and a jacket and a blazer or whatever.
It's not a jean city, is it?
It's just not a jean city. Luckily, I'd been briefed by so many colleagues who'd already been before. So I took dresses to wear each day, most of which got progressively tighter as I'd eaten more and more food by the last day. The last one I put on, I was like, oh God, time to come home now. And I did flats because I wore flats every day because I did quite a lot of walking between different shows and appointments. It's quite a walking city in the end of it. But then you do get lots and lots of people who are navigating cobbles in very, very high Milanese sexy stilettos as standard, fine. What else did I think of it? Yeah, the food was great. Ate loads of it. Discovered Princi, which is basically a glorified, is it a glorified Greggs?
It's a Milanese, it's a cafeteria.
Isn't it owned by Pret? Have I made that up?
No.
I could believe it was a glorified Greggs, but with a more Italian heritage, you know. But essentially the same things. Pizza squares, loads of bread, loads of cream cakes.
You know there's one on Wardour Street, right?
Is there?
Yep.
Oh no, it's Starbucks. It's owned by Starbucks.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's me thinking I've discovered the new...
Not owned by. It was founded in 1986, but it was invested in by Starbucks.
Wow.
A couple of years ago. I'm so sorry to break that.
True signs of a rookie, eh?
This is like the time when I thought I'd discovered this bakery called Marchesi in Milan, because it was like little and wooden on the outside, and I went in and I just drank my espresso at a wooden bar with some Italian businessmen who were reading papers, and I ate a bun, and I was so chic. Discovered this great place, told Lisa and Sasha about it, and they were like, yeah, Prada owns that bakery. I was like, cool, yeah.
Yep.
My bad.
But all in all, I had a cracking time.
Lovely. Well, to the clothes. Not that, I should ever cut the food short. What would be on everyone's fantasy shopping list if we had loads of money?
Ooh.
Emily?
Well, shopping from, my computer screen or my iPhone, actually, while I'm watching something really glam in the background, Gardener's World. What really stood out to me, especially for a spring-summer collection, were the amazing coats in Prada's collection. I was almost salivating over the brown double-breasted one that Gigi Hadid was wearing. Or even very uncharacteristically for me, the orange one, the orange specimen with turquoise fern embroidery that another model had on.
I loved the black with the white collar.
That was good too. I wouldn't say no.
It was a little bit like Wednesday Addams.
Yes.
Doing that Thanksgiving parade.
Yes, absolutely. Like Wednesday Addams, the Pilgrim. But there was, really I was sort of, I was so impressed by the Prada collection because I know that critics love it, and I know that it's always like a favorite that everyone wants to see, but the past few collections haven't really done it for me. And this one I thought just ticked so many Prada boxes. Like you had the ugly pretty, like the ugly chic clashing geometric prints. You had the like very buttoned down or buttoned up coats and shirts and everything like that. And in really lovely, super fine knits that are not unlike actually what I'm wearing today, except it's definitely not Prada. And there were a few just beautiful, slinky dresses in the mix too.
See, I didn't think this was a very Prada-y Prada, because Prada's normally my favourite. But this was a little bit pared back for me.
But the brown and the orange and the...
Is Prada still your favourite when she does the Frankenstein motif?
That comic book one wasn't very me. I'm sort of more of like a feathered Prada, or maybe like the Flames Prada.
Flames. Yeah.
Feathered and Flames Prada was good, but I would venture that like mermaid satin dress with gold fern embroidery off the shoulder moment Prada is also pretty good too.
Okay, interesting. Caroline, what were your highlights?
So one of my takeaways really was I really loved the knits at Prada. I'm really excited for a bit of a summer lightweight knit. Elsewhere, I love Bottega. I know everyone says they love Bottega. It's the trendy thing to say, I'm sure. But
how did you know that my other note of things I'd like to buy was the Bottega flat woven sandal?
Do you know what I mean? They're just,
am I a bit basic? Is Bottega about to be basic?
Though.
But this is a slightly about turn on Bottega, because Daniel Lee, who's the new creative director, when he was announced at Bottega, he had come from Celine and he worked under Phoebe Philo there. So everyone was very excited that, post Phoebe's exit from Celine, Daniel was going to deliver what we were missing at Bottega. And then his debut collection showed in a very hot glass room during last Milan Fashion Week, was it? Oh,
yeah.
Time flies when you're working 6 days a week. His debut collection was a bit hard. It was a lot of black. It was very kind of graphic. It wasn't kind of what we were perhaps hoping for. It was beautiful in its own way, but it was very different from an old Celine. So this is surprising that actually Bottega Veneta has now emerged as the hot ticket of Milan Fashion Week.
It's the accessories, I think, and also an Instagram thing. They've been everywhere, all over summer. You've seen it on all the different bloggers and influencers are taking snaps with these accessories. This amazing little pouch cloud bag and these square front sandals, as Em pointed out, are on her wish list. And I just think, do you see something so many times that you start to really, really love it? Maybe you do.
I don't know. Caroline, actually, I think that I've seen too much of the square-toed, really stringy, thongy type sandals with the heel. Those I am so not into, will never be into. No, thank you. But the ones in the show with the like plaited leather straps over, over the ball of the foot, like it just looked like a cooler Birkenstock. But I agree that it's totally a case of accessories driving demand. I mean, he did have that amazing blazer with the scoop neckline and the asymmetric white buttons a couple seasons ago that got a lot of traction. But really, we're mainly seeing shoes and bags, not clothes from him. Do you think the show will change that?
Honestly, no. I think that the accessories were still the talking point afterwards. He had these huge kind of hammock-like bags, which are going to start a big conversation about are big bags coming back after everybody's been obsessed with these teeny tiny little handbags for so long.
Well, speaking of, though, there were a lot of those teeny tiny little handbags, Caroline, because we called it here first, guys. Last season, it bags for ants.
Ah, yes.
We saw more of them. Dolce & Gabbana's just big enough to fit your AirPods in. Is that what they're called? I don't have a pair. My headphones still have cords.
Is that on your shopping list?
Nope, it's not. Is this because the 1% have people to carry their stuff? Is this a trend for the masses?
I think it's a novelty thing, obviously. It's like, the bag for your AirPods. The bag at Gucci, it was like they had like a holster kind of thing that went around the arm that was just to carry your new Gucci lipsticks, specifically fits only their lipsticks in it. It is a novelty thing, but people will buy it. People love that.
It's also cheaper than like, shall we say, a full-size model. So, you might get someone who previously could only buy a Gucci t-shirt or a Gucci lipstick or a scarf or sunglasses thinking, ooh, maybe I can have a little bag too to fit my aunts.
At the other end of the spectrum, though, the big bags. Is this any better or osteopath city?
I think it depends how much crap you throw in them. Because there's room to start carrying tons and tons of unnecessary things around. And then, you are going to do yourself an injury.
They did look quite chic, though.
I liked them a bit more, actually, in London. I think Roland Mouret did ones that kind of matched the dress, and they were a soft fabric bag, and they matched your dress. And I thought that was really fun because it was kind of like easy dressing, like your bag matches your dress. Like an extension, like a giant pocket.
Only matches the one dress, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. And
unless you do like a mono wardrobe.
Still quite expensive.
They sort of remind me of slings that you can carry babies in. So I want to stay as far from that as possible.
Fair enough.
One of the talking points on the catwalk wasn't an intended catwalk moment, or at least not from the designer in question. At Gucci, the show began with a series of models on kind of travelators coming out in straitjackets. And one of the models, Aisha Tan-Jones, held their palms out in front of them and had the words "mental health is not fashion" written on them. This did seem like it might have been something that Alessandro Michele, who's the creative director, might have planned, because he is very inclusive. He's known for being an LGBTQ plus supporter, but this wasn't a gimmick, and it wasn't something that he knew about in advance. What did everyone make of this? Emily?
Well, Caroline, you saw it. Did it even register when you were there, or was the venue so large that you just saw like a model with their hands out? We're saying they are, by the way, because this model identifies as non-binary, and that's their chosen pronoun, not because we're grammatically incorrect.
I didn't see this model because the thing was that when we kind of went into the show space, we were in on this kind of hospital chairs and looking at 4 different straight kind of travelators. And so with that opening portion, there were 60 models dressed in these straitjackety type outfits, and they were just being sort of spat out on conveyor belts down the 4 lanes. So this didn't happen on the lane I was looking at. And it was only afterwards that we saw pictures and we thought, oh, right, what was that? Did that, because there wasn't a big, gasp or anything like that in the room that you could notice at the time. So it was very subtle and it was only in the pictures. But yeah, so Alessandro kind of explained afterwards that his comment with this tableau kind of scene was not to be about mental health, but it was supposed to be all about uniforms. And he was saying that the straitjacket is kind of the most blank and stark of uniforms. And his comment was then that none of these straitjackets were being sold, and that after those initial 60 looks had kind of gone by, the real collection began. And that was him saying, here's creativity as an antidote to that blankness. So that was his explanation. Make of that what you will. But yeah, the incident itself did not register with many people in the room at the time.
God, he's prolific. Can you imagine another designer creating 60 looks that are just like the amuse-bouche for the show? Can you imagine? I wonder if maybe they were planning to produce some of the straitjackets in commercial versions until this protest. I mean, he has gotten himself into hot water with other, shall we say, ill-judged fashion moments before. So why does this keep happening to him?
Actually, Lisa Armstrong, our head of fashion, interviewed him before the show for a piece in the paper, which I've just finished reading, and you can find in the paper very shortly. And he has apologised for the Gucci blackface scandal, which was this kind of jumper that had a built-in balaclava that covered the mouth. To cover the face.
So it had a polo neck. It was a black jumper with a polo neck and the neck pulled up to cover everything below the eyes, and then that had a cutout for the mouth that was rimmed in red.
It was rimmed, yeah. So he has, raised his hands to that and said that it was ignorance on his part and that he didn't see it that way, but he should have. And he's also, very openly addressed the criticism that's been thrown at him after this show with the mental health issues. At least we're having the conversation, I suppose.
I also wonder, do brands have to be perfect now? Because I think that when people are afraid to take risks, then it becomes incredibly monotonous and boring. I mean, this is a designer who has done arguably more than any other designer to push the issue of inclusivity in fashion, and he's included trans models in every show. He's championed the careers of actresses like Harry Neff, who is always on his front row. So, I don't want people to get into the way of thinking that if you're going to do anything, you have to do everything. It's okay to try something and get it wrong sometimes. Although maybe he should just ask some of the more woke millennials in his office next time if he's putting a foot wrong. Just an idea, Alessandro.
To a very different catwalk talking point, J-Lo.
Oh, J-Lo.
Oh my God, moment I had the most FOMO about missing. I'm so glad you were there.
It was unreal. I can't even. Well, J-Lo was at Versace. So it was the 20th anniversary of the time when she wore Donatella's jungle print dress. It was a dress that she wore to the Grammys in the year 2000, and it was the dress that basically prompted the invention of Google Images, because the next day so many people were on the internet trying to look for pictures of J-Lo looking fit in this dress, and Google were like, we need an image search. So that is the story of that dress. So yes, this was the 20th anniversary though of that dress, and J-Lo, who is now 50, came out wearing an even smaller, less fabric version of the same dress and walked the catwalk. And oh my God, she stormed it. Everybody, Anna Wintour, everybody on their feet. People couldn't get enough of it. It was
a sea of camera phones.
It was a sea of camera phones indeed. And she didn't even flinch, and there was just no jiggle. Every part of her was just gorgeous.
I have a theory that J-Lo has been replaced by a robot. Because there's just no way, as a fellow mom of twins, hi J-Lo, we should be buds. There's just no way that anyone can look like that when they're 50.
She was rock solid, I can't even tell you.
Well, I've been in a dressing room with J-Lo, and
do tell.
In my days as a fashion assistant, I worked on an Elle cover shoot with J-Lo in Paris, or as J-Lo put it, it's meant to be J-Lo in Paris, not J-Lo an hour outside of Paris, because she was very upset that we couldn't get Versace, which was her request. So we just had a run-of-the-mill chateau. It was glorious, most beautiful place I've ever been, but it was not Versace, and J-Lo was livid. But just the right amount of livid to be the fabulous diva.
For you to really respect her.
Yeah, because she was also incredibly professional. She nailed all her shots. She brought her own dresses with her, too, even though obviously there was a stylist and me as the assistant and a whole team, but she brought her own dresses. And she looked incredible. Just incredible.
I have a theory, and I wonder if we can, if anyone can confirm or deny this for us. But just based on the fact that my entire Instagram feed for a few hours was that video of J-Lo sashaying up and down, I wonder if The Hustlers box office got a boost in the UK this weekend. Because I've got to say, I really want to see that movie now, and I don't think I did before.
Well, this is probably why she's in such good shape. I mean, she's always in great shape, but she is in a film about strippers.
And she does a remarkable pole dancing scene, and
she's wearing some jewels and not much else. So you would be in great shape for that film.
You'd have to be, and apparently people are saying that there's Oscar buzz around it. So it's
interesting,
not just eye candy.
Well, we know what she'll be wearing to the Oscars ceremony.
She better. That's probably in her contract with Donatella.
Hopefully. They'd already cut away the sleeves.
Yes.
And
the original had sleeves and more fabric at the back and more fabric on the stomach.
So I'm hoping
it's all been removed.
by the Oscars, perhaps we'll just have a bikini.
Probably.
Just a leaf print bikini, maybe for JLo, with a train.
I've never seen such confidence in a single human being. As she kind of walked past, we were all just dissecting her like, oh my God, look at her nails. Oh my God, look at her hair. Like everyone was just like, wow.
Did you notice the rest of the show?
I've forgotten it after because it was the end. It was the finale. And then I wrote about JLo and I thought, oh, quick, say something about the other looks.
And there was some really chic black tailoring.
Yeah, there was. Quick, say something about that.
Because the rest of the collection was quite pared back for Versace.
Can't remember.
That's the takeaway moment. Controversy aside, the main takeaway of Gucci was that this was perhaps a return to sexy, but this wasn't Tom Ford sexy as he did it at Gucci. Alessandro Michele actually worked under Tom Ford at Gucci, but then was responsible for replacing that very sexy plunging aesthetic with, geek chic. He said to Lisa, I began to wonder what would happen if my nerdy crew got sexy. And what happened was very sheer dresses and actually some plunging necklines. But do we want to see sexy anymore? It's been so long since fashion did sexy. I'm not sure if there's as much of an appetite for
I'm
it.
not sure they can remember how.
We've been in modest dressing mode for so long. And in the kind of whole Me Too climate, does it still feel modern?
It's interesting, Charlie, because another big thing that happened this week was the Emmys. And we've talked about some of our favorite looks from the Emmys just between ourselves at the desk. And one of yours, I think, was Jodie Comer and Tom Ford. She was wearing this kind of a white halter neck dress that also had long sleeves. So it had this like slice of skin showing around her shoulder. And I was struck by, yes, like ostensibly she looks sexy. It is a slinky, sexy dress. But it looks aging. It's like sexy seems like an outdated concept, like a very Sharon Stone in Casino era thing of, showing your shape, flashing some flash. Like, it's just, I'm not sure. It seems more like from the archives than anything that's really exciting right now. And I wonder why that is.
The thing I liked about Gucci, which made it a little bit more appealing to me anyway, was that for so many seasons, Alessandro has really gone for it with the embellishment. Like every single look has been like, you don't just have like a pair of sunglasses and a handbag with it. You have the hair clip, the sunglass, the brooch, the sunglasses chain, the dragon. Yes, the small baby dragon.
The replica of your own head.
Yes, another
to carry under your arm.
Another
that was a
such
highlight.
accessory. And all of that this season was kind of stripped away a little bit more. So you could see people's figures and you could see what a person might look like underneath all of that stuff, which I guess is quite sexy. Is it?
But it fights against that whole move away from the high heels that we have seen in the last in the last few years, and the move away from cleavage and the move away from short skirts. Do you think we're ready for sexy again? Is it just all going to swing back to that?
Let me tell you, I'm not ready for sexy again. I'm ready for jumper weather. Jumpers and clogs. That is my zone right now.
Okay.
I think as well, it won't just snap back into little sexy dresses, if that's what sexy is now. These things take time and to sort of filter down and for people to start doing them en masse. And if you think about this summer, all everyone wanted to wear anywhere was a big wafty floral midi dress on every type of occasion. And I don't feel like next summer we're suddenly all going to be in a mini again, just like that.
Well, I hope not. No. Of course, we won't really know until the trends crystallise in Paris, which is the final stop on our Fashion Week tour and what we're going to be talking about next week. This is some of the biggest shows and certainly the shows that kind of lead the way in terms of trends. So it's all to play for. Perhaps we'll all be in hot pants. come spring.
God.
Not me personally, obviously.
No, me neither.
I should say that while we've all got our noses to the grindstone covering Fashion Week, it's not the only thing going on in the world. Our podcast producer Theo, in fact, has rushed back from the Labour conference in Brighton. Did you have time for a 99 flake, Theo?
I did have time, but the weather wasn't really up to it. And they don't cost 99p anymore, £1.20.
I should say she actually rushed back to cover the breaking Brexit news, not the fashion podcast, but we're very lucky to have her. Guys, what else is on the agenda this week?
There have been some events this week. There were the Emmys. There's the Royal Tour in South Africa, which I've been spending a lot of my time covering. Hooray. And Greta Thunberg, the Swedish 16-year-old who leads Extinction Rebellion, addressed the UN yesterday. And I've seen more and more calls for people to talk about sustainability at Fashion Week. I mean, we know that the Dior show later today is really going to have an eco focus. And I just saw someone who works in fashion PR post something on Instagram saying, "Fashion press, do your job. It's time to ask all designers how sustainable their spring-summer 2020 collection is."
Well, in New York, Gabriella Hearst did her carbon neutral fashion show, which was an industry first, but has been quickly followed by the Gucci show, also carbon neutral. But we have to note that obviously carbon neutral just means donating what is the kind of equivalent cost to the planet to, causes that will then benefit the environment. It doesn't undo the damage done to the environment.
Yeah, and the Gucci show, I cannot tell you how much traffic was in front of that show, how many limos of editors and buyers and celebrities or whatever pulling up. Like, you can't just ignore that.
Well, also, I think with Fashion Week, the elephant in the room is that everyone flies around to 4 different cities.
The flying, the driving, the incredibly resource-intensive show spaces that are created for a 15-minute show, the paper stock, the trees that die for these invitations alone, which I love. I love the invitations.
And the press releases that are on everyone's seat and then all over the floor at the end of the show.
Absolutely. And the energy expended and the lighting and the music, it's a lot. I wonder if this is going to become, part of the conversation that we have every Fashion Week now.
If it should, then, I'm sure it will happen to our industry, but there are other industries doing similar things. You have, perhaps not the same number of people moving through cities in quite such a visible way, but you have, I don't know, how many different car shows are there on the planet? How many different film festivals are there? How many different... So it's something our industry needs to look at, but so do lots of others.
So we're not the only ones, is what you're saying.
I'm saying we're not the only ones.
Not all our fault.
What do you think?
It is all our fault.
What's the future then, guys? Skype fashion shows? We'll just all Skype in?
I think it would be so nice.
It would really solve the front row problem.
All in one room, one after the other. And we just...
with snacks.
Yeah, we all sat in a
snacks.
really comfy chair and had exactly loads of snacks, and we just saw it all in one go.
In all seriousness, I do think that probably what the Extinction Rebellion activists would have us do would be eliminate seasons completely and maybe push for more evergreen collections. I mean, this is something that, again, Alessandro Michele has done it really well at Gucci, is that there are certain pieces that never go on sale that he carries over season to season, like the Marmont loafers and sandals, that kind of thing. And maybe just release tiny little collections to infuse newness each season, produce in much more limited quantities, and also encourage and facilitate the repair and extended use of the items that they sell in the first place. It's a bigger topic, and we should probably return to it another day. But it is interesting to me to see how this is becoming more part of the conversation.
And that's all we've got time for. Join us next week for the last in our Fashion Week series. We'll be fresh from the front rows, or should that be patisseries, of Paris. Until then, join the conversation by emailing us at unzipped@telegraph.co.uk or find us on Instagram at Charlie Gowans, Emily Crow and Caroline Leaper. You can also sign up for a free 30-day trial of all of our online content at telegraph.co.uk/Fashion Unzipped sub. Thanks for listening.
have a friend who never pays their share of the bill? Or are your parents wasting your inheritance on flash cars and Caribbean cruises? Or maybe you have 2 children, but you can only afford to send one to a fee-paying school.
The common thread? Money, and the moral problems that it so often leaves in its wake.
I'm Lauren Davidson.
And I'm Sam Meadows.
We both report on personal finance for The Telegraph. And each week on our podcast, Moral Money, we're joined by one of our paper's best-loved columnists to unpick the thorny financial issues sent in by listeners.
From stretching your work expenses to the ethics of paying less tax, this is the ultimate guide to what's okay and what's not in the blurred world of money morals.
It's heated.
It's lively.
And it might even help you become a better person.
Search for Moral Money in your favourite podcast app and click subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode.